Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh is the world's largest refugee camp and home to more than 1 million Rohingya.
Imagine being forced to flee your home, your country, and everything you've ever known. Today, we're diving into the world's largest refugee crisis, the Rohingya exodus. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why 1.3 million people are living in limbo and what's being done about it.
And it's a crisis that's only getting worse. The latest UN data shows that these numbers have nearly doubled over the last decade.
That's staggering. Take us back. How did this become the world's largest refugee crisis?
Well, it all came to a head in August 2017. Myanmar's military launched what they called clearance operations in Rakhine State, forcing over 740,000 Rohingya to flee to Bangladesh in just a few weeks.
Wait, 740,000 people in just weeks?
Yes, and the UN later described it as having genocidal intent. The scale, organization, and ferocity of the operation was unprecedented.
And Bangladesh took them in?
They did. Despite their own challenges, Bangladesh opened its borders. Today, Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh hosts the world's largest refugee settlement.
We don't have the donors who used to come and help us for the Rohingya response available because of geopolitics, and it was because of the lack of money to go forward that we had to close the schools, the learning centres that UNICEF is responsible.
That's quite a humanitarian gesture.
It is, but it's coming at an enormous cost. The impact on Bangladesh's economy, resources, environment, and ecosystem has been huge.
And what's daily life like for these refugees?
It's incredibly challenging. They're facing severe food shortages. Monthly rations have been cut to just $6 per person. That's barely enough for rice and pulses.
$6? That's impossible to live on.
Exactly. And it's not just food. They face restrictions on movement, work, and housing outside the camps.
So they're basically trapped?
In many ways, yes. And here's what makes it even more complex. They're stateless. Myanmar's 1982 citizenship law stripped them of citizenship rights.
That's fascinating and troubling. They're citizens of nowhere?
Exactly. They represent the world's largest stateless population, making them extremely vulnerable to abuse and exploitation.
And what's the international community doing about this?
Well, that's where it gets complicated. Bangladesh's interim leader, Muhammad Yunus, just proposed a 7-point roadmap for resolution.
The Nobel Peace Prize winner, what's he suggesting?
His main focus is on securing their right to return home safely and with dignity. But he's also calling for sustained international aid and an end to violence in Myanmar.
But return home to what? Is Myanmar even safe?
That's the critical question. The situation in Myanmar remains volatile, especially in Rakhine State.
So they're stuck in this limbo.
Yes, and it's affecting an entire generation. Over 40% of these refugees are children.
That's heartbreaking. What happens to these kids?
Many are growing up without access to proper education. Thousands of learning centres have been shut down.
So we're potentially looking at a lost generation?
Exactly. And rights groups are warning about rising rates of child marriage and child labour as families struggle to cope.
What about other countries in the region? Are they helping?
Some are. Malaysia hosts about 117,000 registered Rohingya refugees, and India has roughly 40,000.
But that's a fraction of what Bangladesh is handling.
Exactly. Bangladesh is bearing the brunt of this crisis, hosting over 1 million refugees.
And what about the refugees themselves? What do they want?
Just last month, tens of thousands gathered at Kutupalong camp with clear demands. They want to return home with equal rights like other ethnic groups in Myanmar.
That seems like a basic human right.
It is, but achieving it is incredibly complex. Previous attempts at repatriation have failed because the Rohingya fear renewed persecution.
And those fears seem justified, given the history.
Absolutely. The UN fact-finding mission found evidence of mass killings, systematic rape, and destruction of entire villages.
That's horrific. Are there any legal consequences for these actions?
The International Court of Justice is reviewing genocide allegations against Myanmar, but progress is slow.
So what's the immediate priority?
Right now, it's addressing the humanitarian crisis. The camps desperately need more funding. Only 30% of the required aid has been met for 2025.
That's a massive shortfall.
And it's having real consequences. Aid organizations are scaling back programs and cutting staff.
What about climate change? These camps must be vulnerable.
Very. The camps face serious risks from flooding, cyclones, and rising sea levels.
So it's crisis upon crisis.
Yes, and women, children, and the elderly are particularly vulnerable during natural disasters.
Is there any hope for improvement?
There are some positive developments. The international conference in Cox's Bazar is working on a practical roadmap for repatriation.
But that's been tried before, hasn't it?
True, but this time there's more emphasis on ensuring security and citizenship rights before any returns happen.
That seems crucial.
It is. As Yunus said, we must not be held hostage to mere rhetoric. The time for action is now.
Speaking of action, what can our listeners do?
Supporting humanitarian organizations working in the camps is crucial. Every dollar helps when rations have been cut to $6 per person.
And staying informed about the crisis?
Absolutely. Public awareness helps maintain international pressure for a solution.
What about regional organizations like ASEAN?
They need to step up. Their response has been inadequate so far, despite their potential to influence Myanmar.
It seems like everyone needs to do more.
Exactly. This isn't just Bangladesh's problem, it's a global humanitarian crisis that requires a global response.
And these are real people, not just statistics.
Right. Each number represents a human being who's lost their home, their rights, and often their family members.
That's what makes this crisis so compelling and so urgent.
And why we can't afford to let it become just another forgotten crisis.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Co-Pilot Podcasts. Remember, the world's largest refugee crisis isn't just about numbers, it's about people and their right to live with dignity and hope.
And as long as 1.3 million people remain in limbo, none of us can truly say we live in a just world.